under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mr. Witt, will you please take the roll call?
Yes, Mr. Batkins?
Here.
Mr. Brado?
Here.
Mr. Olgiati?
Here.
Mrs. Rose?
Here.
Mr. Tominello?
Here.
Mr. Witt? Here. Mr. Verkast?
Here. All right. Next on our agenda is the approval of the consent agenda, which includes the approval of the regular board meeting minutes from April 22nd, 2024, the first quarter 2024 treasurer's investment report, water main inventory restock, brine application through Macomb County Department of Roads, and approval of the bills in the amount of $1,208,492.86. Unless there are any changes, I'd be looking for a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
So moved.
Is there support?
Support.
Got a motion by Mr. Badkins with support by Mr. Olgiati. Any discussion on the approval? Hearing none and seeing no public comment, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Board. Next on the agenda is the approval of the regular agenda. I am not aware of any amendments, so unless there are amendments, I'd be looking for a motion to approve the regular agenda as proposed.
I'll make that motion.
Support.
Got a motion by Mrs. Rose with support by Mr. Tominello. Discussion? Hearing none and seeing no public comment, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Board. Next is announcements. We do have a few announcements. First, a big thanks to everyone who came out for the Harrison Township Parks and Rec Parade of Bikes. It was a great event. The next Parks and Rec event is the Kids Fishing Derby. That's scheduled for June 8th at Lake St. Clair Metro Park. I'm not sure you guys might want to give some updates on that, but wanted to make sure we at least put it out there. Also, we know that many residents were unfortunately affected by the storms last week. We are working with GFL, our waste hauling provider, to coordinate chipping services. They are actively out and servicing our township. We ask that residents be patient, as they are extremely backed up due to the unexpected volume of chipping. They may come to your home several days after your normal service day. Last week was their typical service day, so and I think that storm really hit.
Tuesday night.
You're right. So if you were Monday or Tuesday, you know, they had already come by, so they're kind of going around and doing a second round for us this week. So be patient. Please place the butt ends of the branches toward the street. The branches should be no greater than 3 inches in diameter and 12 feet or less in length. Next Monday, May 20th, we are hosting an open house for the Resilient Harrison 2040 Master Plan. This meeting will be here. That open house will be right here at Rosso Hall from 4 to 7 p.m. It's an open house format, so residents can come and go as they please. We encourage you to stop by if you want to be a part of the information gathering for the master plan and preliminary review. Our library is hosting their annual Shred Day this Saturday, May 18th, from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. I believe they typically limit you to one box and whatnot.
2 boxes.
2 boxes?
Yep.
Okay, 2 boxes. So 11 a.m. this Saturday from 1 a.m. to 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. They do have more information on the library website. And as always, for more information on these, as well as all other township events, you can call the supervisor's office, 586-466-1445. Visit the website, www.harrisontownshipmi.gov, or follow us on Twitter or X at HarrisonTWPMI. Any other announcements?
All right, yeah, the fishing derby is June 8th. It's 8 to 11 a.m. You do not need a license. Bring your family, bring your kids. Every kid goes home with a prize. Mr. Batkins has coordinated a couple of people to grill up some fresh hot dogs, so it's always a good time out there. And we usually have a couple hundred people that take part, so registration is preferred so we can plan accordingly for food and prizes, and that's on our website. But if you forget to register, just come on out. It's a great time. It is at Lake St. Clair Metro Park, so you will need a park pass to get in.
And that's over by the boat launch.
Yep, as soon as you pull in, past the gate where you pay, hang a left.
Yep.
Yep.
Okay.
Just wanted to thank everyone that came out and vote. We had a steady election day, nothing too crazy, but we do appreciate all our election workers that work at the precincts, as well as those came out to vote. We are already getting ready for the August election, so you will see residents that are signed up on our permanent absentee list will see the application come out in the next week or two for both August and November, so keep an eye out in your mailbox for that.
All right. Any other agenda, or I'm sorry, any other announcements? Hearing none, we'll move forward with our agenda. Next on the agenda is item D1, regarding a special assessment district.
Yes, sir. At our April 22nd, 2024 meeting, resolution number 4 was adopted, which set the date for the second public hearing for the Archer and Lakeshore Canal Sediment and Aquatic Weed Removal Special Assessment District, known as the Public Hearing of Necessity. The notice of the public hearing was published twice in the Journal, and we also sent notice to each titled property owner or party of interest via first-class mail based on our local tax records. So again, the purpose is for individuals to speak to the role as it was created for this project. This project has been adjusted from the original public hearing, so if anyone is here and didn't hear the second part of it, the board made a decision to remove the properties along the east-west canal between Riverdale and Pardee.
Is that 16 parcels?
Yeah, about 17 parcels.
17?
16, 17 parcels that were pulled out. So now it's limited to the houses directly on that Lakeshore Archer Canal. So, but at this time, board, we would be looking for a motion to open the public hearing for residents to speak to the assessment role for this project.
All right, and if residents do choose to speak, we encourage them to identify themselves, name and address.
Correct, yes, sir.
Okay, and we do have on-deck chairs, so for folks that may not come to the meetings regularly, we encourage you, if you do wish to speak during public comment, obviously the podium is there, but if you know you want to speak and someone else is speaking, we encourage you to sit in one of the on-deck chairs. That way, we keep the comments moving so that we're respectful of your time. You don't have to stay here all night and whatnot. So be looking for a motion to open public hearing number 2.
I'll make that motion.
At 7:09. Right, Mr. Badkins, is there support?
Support.
All right, got a motion by Mr. Badkins with support by Mrs. Rose to open public hearing number 2. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none and seeing no public comment, Mr. Witt, will you please take the roll call?
Yes, Mr. Backens?
Yes.
Mrs. Rose?
Yes.
Mr. Brado?
Yes.
Mr. Olgiati?
Yes.
Mr. Tominello?
Yes.
Mr. Witt? Yes. Mr. Verkest?
Yes. So at this time, if you wish to speak, I suppose, for or against the special assessment, we encourage you to come up at this time.
Hi, my name's Tom Ashbrook. Live on Lakeshore. I don't understand value in this work that is proposed to be done. There is no value to the homeowner that I know of at all. There's been no value proposition stated. I can't determine when the work gets done, what the pile of silt and weeds that we assess can't see in water to determine whether or not the job was done and done correctly. By the way, how was it even picked out how far in the canal, up the canal, for this work to be done? You know, to my understanding, there's been a few complaints down at the end where they have a shallow and buildup of silt. It's a few people, and they're apparently imposing this type level of work on a large number of people on down the road, if you will. You're talking about there, why did it stop there? Why don't you take in Lake Huron? Why, St. Clair River, so forth. They all contribute to the flow of water, just as it does there at Lake Shore. Don't understand, guys. Certainly don't understand the value in doing this. And I see degradation in value. You're adding $5,000 approximately a cost up front for doing the job that you can't even tell whether or not it's done and done correctly, and what value will it produce for us, the homeowners. Don't understand that, guys. Why does it stop there? We're impacted by all of Lake St. Clair, Lake Huron, and beyond. All part of public waterway. Can anybody here answer those questions?
So our typical pattern is that we don't interact during public comment. We will receive comments, do my best to take notes, but we don't typically interact. Once public comment is closed, we'll close public comment, and then we'll do our best to address the items stated during public comment.
You have anything else, hon?
Hi, my name is Jessica Bauer. I live at 39041 Lakeshore Drive. I have been there my whole 45 years of my life. I have seen it from the early 80s, from living there as a dirt road. I haven't seen any issues with our canal. Yes, we've had weeds. Yes, we've taken care of a lot of things. I have neighbors with 35-foot boats that still come down our canal and have no issue. We do have some areas further down where it opens up as you're going out. It's a little bit thinner. I haven't seen anybody get stuck ever. Our water levels go up and down generationally. Every years we see that levels up and down. And their storms have been bad. We have a lot of things in the neighborhood we're always changing better, but at the moment, I don't think this proposed action did in the neighborhood. I'm a boater. Go out every year. I detail boats. Been around it my whole life. But it's just something I don't think we need just yet.
Thank you.
You had the additional cost of about $1,000 a year. For what? For what? What does the homeowner get out of this? How are we selected to pay for that? And what is going to be produced by it? And what value will it bring me? Bring away. I speak not to me, but a number of our neighbors. Basically clueless as to what's really going on. Like I said, there's no value proposition, nothing stated in there. Well, what's that value short term and what's that value long term? Nothing. One person had come to our house to try and explain what was going on. Just stuck to the very basics. They want to do that. They want to dredge canal because he was impacted by it on the end. How many people are really impacted and for what? Guys, we're looking for your help. Don't understand. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any other public comment?
Ken Mulder, 39488 East Archer Drive. I wanted to thank the board again for the last meeting for the approval and thank the clerk's office for the work that they've done in helping us set up the SAD. We were looking at doing this. We were close back in the early 2000s to dredging when we had low water the last time. At that point, the canal became almost impassable. A lot of people had mud at the bottom of their seawall before we had water. But as the water started to rise again, we lost a lot of support for that. So this time around, we were looking to be proactive instead of reactive. The water level is on its way down from the record highs we saw over the last few years. And we decided to get out early without trying to save losing a boating season and get the dredging done early. We contacted multiple dredging companies to get quotes. Unfortunately, only one really followed through. We were able to get them out to do testing and check the entire length of the canal to determine which areas needed the dredging. They showed that there was 2 to 3 feet of sediment down the entire stretch of the canal into the intersection with the Riverdale Powers Canal, which is why we determined the area that needs to be done. There are some areas that are shallower than others, but again, the sediment was pretty consistent through the entire thing. We chose a process that will allow us to not only dredge a highway down the center, but through suction dredging, which doesn't affect any structural elements to seawalls or docks. They're able to dredge all the way from wall to wall, which is why we chose this method. Having a highway down the center doesn't provide a lot of benefit if you can't actually pull your boat up to your house. While they were in there doing the testing to figure out how much material was there, we also had environmental testing done, which would be required at the permit process to test for any hazardous materials, determine how the sediment that's removed gets handled. We got the results back from that. All the information was made public and given to the township clerk, but what we found was that it was any materials that were found were normal for what they consider normal glacial till, the entire Great Lakes region, so we were not required to go to take the sediment to a hazardous dump. It's safe to be used and basically sold off as topsoil. The material that is removed, we'll be able to see how much is removed. We're estimating about 2,000 yards of material because there will be 9 sediment bags where the material is collected and dried out before it's taken away. And we've secured at this point the 9 properties that will be holding those sediment bags. So again, thank you for your time.
Thank you. Is there any other public comment?
Evening, Board. Jeff Kovacic, 38886 Pardee Street. Just a couple things here that I'd like to try to get some answers on. With y'all saying that you changed the last, with it going in front of the board that way, they tabled it based on, I think, because the people on the one street there wanted to be pulled away. But there was also some other questions that were part of that, and that being that some of these homes on Archer Lakeshore Pardee are missing seawalls. I'm wondering if that's been addressed at all. It seems to me that the engineering on this is based on, as Mr. Mulder just said, there was one company that actually came out and showed interest in this and took the bids on it and whatnot. That doesn't make me feel very comfortable that we put enough engineering thought into this, make sure that it's going to solve a problem, and also answering the question of what exactly is that problem. I'm not sure what the problem is at this point. And that being said, I mean, if there's still issues with seawalls being missing, who's to say that all of that dirt from those, once we start sucking this out, is just going to go right back into that canal and create the same problem? That's my concern, is we're throwing money at something that in a year or two could be the exact same problem all over again. Basically, we've just wasted everybody in there's money on doing this project. I just want to go on record. I have got, in addition, I've got 2 properties side by side, my home and a vacant lot next to me that are separate entities. In my looking at the properties in this project, myself and I think only one other owner of property have the 2 lots that are separate. This is forcing me to almost combine my lots so that I'm not getting double hit on the pricing for this. I'm going to be myself and I think only one other owner in this entire project are getting a double hit on this, where we have to pay double. I don't have any more footage than anybody else because this thing, when it was voted upon based on footage, yet we're having to pay for it based on parcels. That seems really odd to me, and again, like I said, I'm opposing it because I'm getting double hit on this thing, and I think there's only one other person that creates an extra hardship for me, compared to anybody else in this project, or at least myself and one other. So again, I'd like to know more about, when we talk about these SADs, typically, from what my experience is, I mean, there has to be some kind of value shown with it as well, as the one gentleman was saying. I'd like to know what is that value to how can we prove this value? Is this going to increase our property values by 10%? There's no way of saying that, especially when we don't even know if it's going to work and what the actual problem is. I don't know what the problem is. It doesn't seem to have been reviewed enough other than by the one company who we're going to give this money to do it. So of course they're going to say, yeah, let's do it because they have an opportunity to make a lot of money on this. That's about all I have for now. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name's Christopher Swift. I live at 39260 East Archer. Couple things about the project, the sediment. I talked to the county about a year and a half ago, and I didn't know it, but Ken and I were doing duplicating efforts for a little while. I was just trying to get the ball rolling. And when I talked to the county, they explained that there's no recorded history of our canal there's been no permits pulled since I can't remember the exact date, but they told me, I want to say it was about the mid-50s. The sediment that they're trying to get cleared out, being 2 to 3 feet deep, the problem is two things. One is we're all boaters, and it's going to make it, if the water level goes down just a little bit more, it's going to be unnavigable. Once that happens, look what happened in St. Clair Shores when they had some issues with their canals. Property values will drop. I can't say with any authority how much or what would exactly happen, but common sense tells me that if our canal gets a reputation of being unnavigable, property values are going to plummet. And of course, we won't be able to enjoy our homes, for the reason we live right here. So this hasn't been done, and they're not trying to worry about, it's a problem, and it needs to somehow be addressed. I've tried personally talking to the homeowners who have 3 lots, and 100 feet of it, there's no seawall, and it's dirt going in. That's not what we're really trying to address at this time. It's going to be sediment. Getting some momentum to at least maybe do something that'll hold up temporarily. They're going to sell that big lot. They're moving slow. Hopefully they'll sell it and somebody will put up a nice seawall and make it really nice. There are probably, I've walked up and down the street, it's been time consuming. Probably talked to, almost everybody on both sides of the street, and there's got to be 12, 15 lots of 2 or 3 lots. If somebody wants to, of course, they can donate to have the bag put on the empty lot, and they're not going to be charged assessment for that piece of property. So there is a cure for the problem of people who have multiple lots, and it helps to ease that burden. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any other public comment?
C. William Bardell, 27-year resident, clean cut, do-gooder boy next door. I wanted to say something about the sediment being stored on empty lots and instead of a barge. I had my house is in the Point Rosa neighborhood, and we had our the lot at the end of my street was one of the lots that was used for storage. Well, I'm not just telling you this to be funny, but I had to replace 2 of my chimneys. When that truck came down the street, I know in the perfect world, the street is supposed to be made to handle that sediment. But in a perfect world, yes, it will. That street will handle the sediment. Yes, and in a perfect world, my house will not shake, and I won't have to replace the brick on 2 of my chimneys. But that's in a perfect world. So what I'm telling you, being a tradesman for the last 50 years and knowing about structural issues and so forth, I would never, ever recommend using a lot to store that sediment. Now, you know, I wasn't born yesterday, and I hope you people aren't, and I hope that you guys use a barge. I really hope you use a barge because, I mean, unless you want your house to shake, you want to replace your chimneys, you want to replace your road, totally trashed my road. It totally trashed my road, and I know you guys got new streets out there. Yeah, I know you got new bridges out there you got assessed for, and I know you got some new streets out there. So, I mean, I would hate for you to have to go back and redo all your streets again. I would highly recommend that you use a barge. I really would. I'm not trying to be funny, and I know you could rebut me. In a perfect world, the street, yes, it's supposed to handle that weight, but it doesn't, okay? It's not made for that square footage. Okay, a garbage truck is not as heavy as that. This is if you know anything about science and density, it's the density is so per cubic foot is so heavy, and it will destroy your road. So I'm not trying to be funny. I'm just trying to help out. People helping people. That's my slogan. So again, in a perfect world, yeah, it wouldn't hurt the street, but I would not recommend you destroy your street. Just for whatever it's worth, thank you.
Thank you. Is there any other public comment? Do you have public comment on this specific subject? No. So that's what public comment is for, yeah. Is there any public comment specific to the special assessment district? Any other public comment?
Mr. Supervisor, in advance of closing the meeting, I would like to record for the record that the board did receive a letter from Mr. William Casey with his concerns against the project.
Yes.
And so that's been distributed to the board, but it'll also be recorded in the minutes as him having spoken to
Is
the
it
property.
necessary to give an address or no?
I'll put it in the minutes.
You'll make sure it's recorded, yeah.
Yes,
But
sir.
everybody did receive that letter from Mr. Casey. Yep. So I appreciate you making that a part of the record. Any other public comment? Any other public comment? Hearing none, I'd be looking for a motion to close public comment at 7:29 PM.
I'll make that motion.
Is there support?
Support.
We've got a motion by Mr. Badkins with support by Mr. Brado to close the public hearing number 2. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none and seeing no public comment, Mr. Witt, will you please take the roll call?
Yes, Mr. Batkins?
Yes.
Mr. Brado?
Yes.
Mr. Olgiati?
Yes.
Mrs. Rose?
Yes.
Mr. Tominello?
Yes.
Mr. Witt? Yes. Mr. Burkowski?
Yes. So I'll do my best to try and respond, and I don't know if other board members may also have responses. The difficult thing about, special assessment districts is we're trying to do what a majority of the people within that district want. There's rules, there's laws that dictate how we do this process. So someone talked about front footage versus parcels. We'll talk about that in a minute. But the reality is, we believe, based on the petitions collected and the signatures that we have, that a majority of the people that would be affected by this are in favor of this. So it would seem kind of wrong for us to say, well, we know a majority of people want it, but we're not going to move forward. So it is difficult for us, but the basis of this process is based on the fact that we have pretty solid evidence that suggests that a majority of people want this. So someone had said there's no value to the work. Well, I may disagree. I do believe if literally substantial bags of debris are removed from the canal, it should improve navigation. How to know how much debris is removed? So we, meaning Harrison Township, we do have experience with this contractor. the first project they did dates back to 2012 in Harrison Township, so that's 12 years of experience. They have done this work in other neighborhoods and in other locations in the township, and our experience in dealing with them has been good. It is a very niche kind of a, work. There aren't, like if you need somebody to put a roof on your house, well, there's a lot of roofs. If you're talking about somebody who's going to suck up debris and silt from the bottom of the canal, it's a much more narrow window. So there aren't really a lot of contractors out there that do this. Someone had said they were concerned that the work may be done incorrectly. That's always a concern anytime you pay a professional to do work. The reality is, at least from our perspective, they've done work in other neighborhoods. They've done work just this spring in another part of the township, and our experiences have been positive. Someone had said, water levels go up and down, and I think someone else made a reference to the fact that that's kind of it's sort of a supply and demand. When the lake levels are crazy high and we're all sandbagging, the least thing we're worried about is dredging a canal. When the water levels go down, we're not sandbagging, but we're worried because we're dragging bottom with our boats. So this, unfortunately, is something we just simply don't control. We did change the district. We did feel that there were some homes that had initially been included that may not have received a fair benefit, and so we kind of stepped back, because our goal is to try to do this in a way that seems to be fair. Someone had commented the only one company bid on the work. As far as I know, I'm not aware of another company that does this kind of work. And again, I certainly am in no position to say that this contractor is a great guy, but our experience has been positive through several projects that we've done with them. The erosion associated with some seawalls missing is really a separate issue. It's certainly a significant issue. We are working with property owners, trying to see if there are ways we can enforce or solve that problem. But hypothetically, if tomorrow, through whatever means, we could install a seawall across those 250-foot lots and dredge all that material, the reality is we would still have a problem over a long distance of that canal that still needs the silt removal. So while I believe fixing the issue at that where the seawalls are missing is a problem, they really are kind of two different issues. Someone had pointed out that their lot, they have a home on a lot, and they could combine their lots, and if they did combine their lots, they'd only have one parcel, so that could reduce their value. That's a double-edged sword, because the majority of the lots in this subdivision were platted at 50 feet, which back in the 20s sounded like a really nice big piece of land to build a little cottage that would be your up north place from Detroit. But the reality is now a lot of those 50-foot lots have homes that could be $1 million. So if you have a home on your 50-foot lot and you own that 50-foot lot next door, you can combine it, but once you combine it, it's really hard to separate it. So, that 50-foot vacant lot, the reality is still pretty valuable as a vacant lot, as a separate parcel. So that's somebody's own personal decision, but I know if I owned a home on a 50-foot lot and I owned a 50-foot vacant lot next to it, I wouldn't combine it. That would be a loss, I think, of equity. The signatures were based on frontage, but the assessment is based on the parcel. It's a question we get all the time. The law says we have to collect signatures and we have to weight those signatures based on the frontage. But the law says we have to assess the cost based on a fair and equitable system. So the reality is, if I have a 100-foot lot and they're combined, and Adam has a 50-foot lot, chances are we both benefit equally. I have one boat, maybe I have two boats, he has one or two boats. It isn't as if I have twice as many boats just because I have a 100-foot lot. So our experience has been that the parcel is the best way to assess that cost. But ultimately, that decision on how to divide that cost is made when we issue those petitions and folks go out and collect those signatures. So the signatures that we have on record that are giving us the confidence that a majority of people want them were based on the fact that the assessment was done based on the parcel, not on the frontage. So I understand that, maybe that confusion or that frustration that a 100-foot parcel gets more power as a signature, but in the end, those are laws that are decided by the state of Michigan, and we operate underneath. The other issue, the last issue that I have is, one resident says, well, how does this increase my property value? And I guess, and then right after that, another resident came up and said, well, if the canal is unnavigable, it would reduce my property value. So I kind of see this as, I guess, like, if I have a home and my roof is failing, do I increase my property value by replacing the roof? No, but if I don't replace the roof and I have internal leaks and rotting, I've deteriorated property value. So is this increasing your property value? Probably not. Removing the Part E bridge increased property values for a lot of the homes on that canal because you can get a much bigger boat in and out of that canal. But dredging the canal is kind of like cutting your grass. If you don't do it, you're kind of losing property value. You've got to maintain your property. So this isn't the first neighborhood that's done dredging. It's not the only neighborhood in Harrison Township alone that's done dredging. And I empathize with the folks who say, I don't want to do it. I get it. The reality, though, is a majority of the folks on this street or these two streets did sign a petition saying we want it. So it's kind of hard for us to say we're not going to do it if it's what a majority of folks want. So those are the best answers I had to public comment. I don't know if there's any other answers.
One of the residents said that they're gonna take the silt and, sell it for a profit as topsoil or something. Do we know about that?
They are paying a fee to remove the sediment, and that's part of the cost of this project. They have a company that actually has to remove it. To get it to the point where that's topsoil in the traditional sense requires effort and screening and drying and making sure that's going to meet the requirements of what somebody wants to put on their property. So does it have value? Maybe to the right person down the road, but not when it comes right out of those bags.
Yeah.
And a lot of that cost realistically is the trucking of it, not the material itself.
It truly is. And again, we are in a bit of a pickle when we recognize, and it's inherently, kind of awkward to say, well, there's only one company that provides this service. The flip side of that is we're in a capitalistic society. If these guys were making a killing and you could do what they're doing for half the price, we'd all start a company doing what they're doing. So, sometimes when you're competitive, it's hard for other people to get into that same business. So regardless of how much money they get from that silt and how much money they compensate someone to leave the bag sit on their property, they've kind of figured it out in a way that apparently there aren't too many people thinking they can do it cheaper, or they would have competitors, it seems. Because definitely this process of removing this silt is not unique to the Huron Point subdivision or Harrison Township or Macomb County, frankly.
And it really, I think it's a matter of scale too. There are people that will do like the water hazard at a golf course, but they won't do a canal. The project they did in the township, a dozen years ago, was the first time they had ever done it at this scale,
Bigger
this
scale.
size.
Right.
So
Correct. Right. Yeah, but it isn't, the concept isn't unique. It's,
correct.
they say it's kind of similar to the Bering Sea Gold guys that
Yeah.
suck that material up. It's kind of the same process, so.
Can I just make a comment from experience? Our complex just had it done, with the same company, and up until we had it done over there this spring, we couldn't probably get 70% of our boats into our harbor. It increased our channel from 2 to 3 foot to 5 to 7 foot now. It was about a 2-week process that it took to finish it up. We're in the process of drying it right now, but I think overall, in general, it's not money you want to spend, but it's money I think sometimes you have to spend just because we are a boating community and people want to have their boats. They want to have their boats in their backyard. They want to be able to enjoy them. And we had a lot of kickback from residents in our complex because they weren't able to get their sailboats in, they weren't able to get their power boats in. That does create a big problem for property value.
Sure.
As much as anything else. So
Yeah.
we had a positive experience with this company.
Yeah, and again, I think where someone had said, well, does this increase my property value? Again, I think it's preventative maintenance. Does an oil change increase the value of your car? No, but failure to do an oil change is clearly not a good way to take care of your car, so, but again, I hate being on this side of the table, because when 55% of the people say they want it, I don't like making 45% of the residents I represent angry, but it doesn't seem right for me to sit here and say we're not going to do it when a majority of people want it, so. Any other, board comment? Hearing none, we'll move on to item D2, which is resolution number 5. Mr. Witt?
Yeah, and I would actually ask that the board table this item. This is, just lays out the information regarding assessments for timing.
Okay.
And I was hopeful I'd have an answer from bond counsel as far as what that timeline looked like, and I need to work with Mr. Tominello's office just to make sure we get the dates right for that. I think the dates that we had in there wouldn't have gelled well with their tax process and where we are to be doing bonding, so I want to make sure we're iron that out before we approve that.
So that's fair. I think I think that's fine. Maybe just an explanation
Yeah, just.
on
yeah,
behalf
so,
of
yeah,
for the
so we can
residents of what
explain.
this timeline looks like.
Yeah, so part of it is because the project sort of exceeds our capability to fund internally, we bond the cost of the project, we pay that to the contractor. But once we get the final number, we'll send out an invoice to all the residents, and that comes from Mr. Tominello's office. We give you an opportunity to pay the project off in full, so you won't have to incur any interest charges. And then at that point, anything that's remaining on your balance would go out onto your winter tax bill, and you'd be paying a portion of that each year until it's paid off. I know we always get the question, well, what happens if I sell the house? Usually what happens is that is paid off at closing, because as somebody purchasing a house, they don't necessarily want to take on an additional cost. But ultimately, it's something that's negotiable, because really it's just a dollar. Like if you had a furnace that they found during inspection that needed to be replaced, you might say, well, I'll take $5,000 off the cost of the house or something like that. So usually it's that kind of give and take, and they really don't carry forward through the process.
Yep.
But we will send that information out from the treasurer's office with the payment information and that opportunity to give you that window when you can come in and pay prior to that being formally financed out.
So the adoption of resolution number 5 will likely take place at a future meeting.
Correct.
Right?
Yep.
Good news is, these are tax-free bonds, so as the township, we are able to, in essence, sort of borrow money cheaper than anyone else can right now. So I think our recent experience has been in the 5% range, something like that.
It was less than 5.
Right, and chances are you can't go out and borrow. Most of us could not go out to the bank today and borrow money at that rate. So good news is, if you do choose to finance this, the lower interest rate that we pay, the lower your cost is if you choose to finance that over several years on your taxes. And if you pay lump sum, you don't pay any interest at all. So at this point, we don't need to have a motion to table? Or do you want a motion to table?
We don't need a motion, no.
No. So we're going to skip action on D2. So for those of you who are here for the special assessment, you're certainly welcome to stick around and listen to all the other exciting things we're doing, but we're done talking about the canal between Archer and Lake Shore. And at this point, we'll move forward to item E1, which is specific to ground emergency medical transport. So board members, within your board packet is a resolution regarding this GEMT, Ground Emergency Medical Transport. I'll refer to it as GEMT. It's a voluntary program available to emergency medical transportation providers operated by or for a government entity. Local governments directly providing emergency transportation services have the option to choose whether they participate in the program. Legislation to direct the Department of Health and Human Services to participate in the U.S. Center for Medicare and Medicaid Services, GEMT program, is anticipated to be introduced shortly by Representative Mike Fall. The proposed bill, House Bill 5965. The Centers for Medicare, CMS, and Medicare and Medicaid Services, CMS, federal agency, oversees this GEMT program. GEMT provides reimbursement to local agencies transporting Medicaid enrollees. This program improves access to emergency services for Medicaid beneficiaries, bridging the gap between patients and healthcare facilities and facilitating timely care during emergencies. Transporting agencies do not receive the full reimbursement available from the federal government for 2.8 million Medicaid enrollees in Michigan. This House bill would codify the state's participation in GEMT program, and coupled with a $2 million appropriation included in the House's DHHS budget, would support Michigan's participation and implementation of the program. Michigan doesn't currently participate in the program. Our state has the 8th highest number of Medicaid enrollees in the nation. Harrison Township would receive additional revenue to help cover the cost to transport these Medicaid enrollees if the legislation were to be approved. Communities that are interested in participating in a GEMT program, when made available in Michigan, can offer their support by passing a resolution, including an acknowledgement to this House bill, and sharing that resolution with the state and the respective lawmakers. Chief Bostater strongly recommends the adoption of this resolution. Side, that's the board packet. The new Sterling Heights fire chief, I might have this messed up, but I believe he came from an agency in Colorado. He was very active in enacting this legislation and basically getting this to be a part of state law in Colorado, and to where every time we transport a Medicaid patient, we would get a greater reimbursement from the federal government. So met with, I don't remember the chief's name, and I apologize, several months ago, said that he was working on this, said when the time comes, I need you guys to pass a resolution. Bottom line, we're voting to say we really think this is a good idea. And if we are successful, and this does get pushed through at a state level, and we believe it would, this is probably a 6-figure increase in revenue for our fire department. So I'm strongly encouraging the board to adopt the resolution of support for the implementation of the Ground Emergency Medical Transport Program in the state of Michigan.
I'll make that motion.
Support. Got a motion by Mr. Witt with support by Mr. Brado. Really, resolutions don't cost us anything. There's no risk. But I think this is something that in the next 12 to 24 months will pay dividends.
It's surprising, though, that we even have to have a resolution to say, yeah, we should get this reimbursement.
Exactly, so right now, there's other states in our nation that are getting more money from the federal government, why? Why do you have to, but it's a part of that process.
Okay.
So I'm excited to know that, and I'm thankful to the city of Sterling Heights for getting somebody who understood this and understands the additional revenue stream that could be available to us. Any other discussion? Hearing none and seeing no public comment, Mr. Witt, will you please take the roll call?
Yes, Mr. Witt. Yes. Mr. Brado.
Yes.
Mr. Backes.
Yes.
Mr. Olgiati.
Yes.
Mrs. Rose.
Yes.
Mr. Tominello.
Yes.
Mr. Verkowski.
Yes. Next on our agenda, item F1 from the clerk's office. Mr. Witt.
Yeah, to say this is from the clerk's office might be a little misleading, but I can definitely talk to it. So tonight we have an ordinance before us to be introduced. The ordinance does a number of things. So the township attorney has prepared this. It's really 3 separate issues. One is the creation of a cost recovery ordinance for emergency service response from the fire department. 2, to create a new type of municipal civil violation for an individual who causes a police response and to charge them the cost for that response. And it also amends the blight ordinance to include junk boats in the waterways. This ordinance would be introduced today, and then would be considered for adoption at a future meeting. After we do the introduction, it's done, noticed in the paper. We make copies available at the clerk's office so individuals can review it if they'd like prior to us formally adopting it.
So, to Mr. Witt's point, this really isn't, the clerk always introduces these ordinance revisions. But the bottom line is there's a cost recovery component in here. Chief Bostater did work with our township attorneys to develop this in light of the significant event that occurred at 15 in Groesbeck, we kind of stepped back and said, is this ordinance as it's written, does it pass the smell test in light of what just occurred? The answer was yes. And then in the meantime, in addition to the police response issue, I did ask one of the township attorneys to make a change to our ordinance so that we might have at least some opportunity to try and address the partially sunken boat. So we've revised with this, we'd be revising our blight ordinance to address junk boats, because we've tried at a state, federal level to say Coast Guard mitigated oil and issues associated with the boat, but they said it's not violating an ordinance. So I said, cool, let's make an ordinance that says it's not allowed. So with any luck, we'll be able to enforce this. So with that, I'd be looking for a motion to introduce this ordinance.
I'll make that motion.
All right, is there support?
Support.
All right, any discussion? Hearing none and seeing no public comment, would this require a roll call?
Yes, sir. Mr. Matkins?
Yes.
Mr. Olgiati?
Yes.
Mr. Brado?
Yes.
Mrs. Rose?
Yes.
Mr. Tominelli?
Yes.
Mr. Witt? Yes. Mr. Burkowski?
Yes, thank you, Board. Next on the agenda, item G1, specific to a part-time maintenance employee. So board members within the board packet, I'm trying to scroll down there, this is a long one. We have an applicant, Mr. David Zepp. He has significant experience with maintenance. I believe he is coming from a recently retired position with a school district. So frankly, I think at $18.75 for an hourly rate, we're probably fortunate to get a guy with as much skill as he is, but as we understand, sometimes when folks retire, they want a little bit of part-time work. So at this point, I'm recommending that we approve the hire of Mr. David Zepp as a part-time maintenance employee pending a successful drug screening.
I'll make that motion.
All right. Is there support?
Support.
Any discussion? Hearing none and seeing no public comment, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carries. All right, next on the agenda is public comments. We do have a closed session to discuss our GELC supervisory contract, but typically when we do go into closed session, we will open the floor for public comment so that anyone present who wishes to make public comment doesn't have to wait till the end of the closed session. So at this point, we'll open the floor for public comment. Could be about any subject that you wish. We ask you try to limit that to 5 minutes in length.
Good evening. My name is Ramona Romero, and I live on Huron Point. I have two issues that I'd like to bring up this evening. The first is I'm requesting an update on the memorial for Lieutenant Colonel Odell. Are there any plans? Is it going forward anywhere? Are we any closer to a location? The Journal had an article recently that they can name bridges and roads as a memorial for him. I thought that might be nice also for him. I think you had a bigger plan, something more visible, but that might be a nice start. The Wounded Warriors have a saying that's in most of their literature: greatest casualty is being forgotten. I hope we're not going to forget about Lieutenant Colonel Odell. His family has gone through a lot with what we've done with the plans for his memorial. So I would like to see something done for him. Let's not forget him and his family. The second issue, I had some friends come from Texas recently, her and her husband and their two kids. And on the way here, to keep the girls quiet, they had them counting state flags. And we rated the lowest of all the states coming from Texas here that use our state flag. We don't even have our state flag with our flag here in front of the office. I would like to see us have our state flag in all of our offices, the police department, the fire department. I think it would be nice to show that we are proud of our state. We claim pure Michigan. Let's show our flag here in Michigan. I would like to see that started in Harrison Township, if we could start it here. And if you would agree to do it here locally, I would contact the different businesses in the area and try to convince them that, to put their flag up. Anybody that has an American flag, our business, I would contact them and see if they would do that. By the 4th of July, I would like to see more of our state flag hanging wherever possible. And then maybe after Harrison Township is doing it, maybe some of the other townships could start that. Thank you.
Thank you.
C. William Bardell, 27-year resident, clean cut, do-gooder boy next door. Fix up, clean up, people helping people, Blue Dog Democrat. I just wanted to remind everyone, please check out Save Lake St. Clair Facebook, follow it, and stay up to date on everything that's going on. And hopefully we can keep our lake, make our lake better in the future and get to the bottom of all this dumping that Oakland County's doing on us. With that said, everyone stay safe and have a wonderful evening. Thank you.
Thank you. Seeing no other public comment, we'll close the floor for public comment, move back to board comment. A resident asked about whether or not we're any closer to a way of honoring Digger Odell. The answer is yes, we are closer because time has elapsed. Do we have a specific location or option? The answer is no. We will not forget Lieutenant Colonel Digger Odell. We will definitely find something, but at this point, I have nothing new to report. Is there any other board comment? Hearing none, I'd be looking for a motion to enter into closed session at 7:58 to discuss the GELC supervisory contract.
I'll make that motion.
Is there support?
Support.
All right, got a motion by Mr. Badkins with support by Mr. Olgiati. Any discussion? Hearing none and seeing no public comment, Mr. Witt, will you please take the roll call?
Mr. Backens?
Yes.
Mr. Olgiati?
Yes.
Mr. Brado?
Yes.
Mrs. Rose?
Yes.
Mr. Tominello?
Yes.
Mr. Witt? Yes. Mr. Verkowski?
Yes. We'll take a brief recess while we clear the chambers and enter into closed session. 8:51 PM.
Support.
All right, I've got a motion by Mrs. Rose with support by Mr. Tominello. Discussion? Hearing none and seeing no public comment, Mr. Witt, will you please take the roll call?
Mrs. Rose?
Yes.
Mr. Tominello?
Yes.
Mr. Batkins?
Yes.
Mr. Brado?
Yes.
Mr. Olgiati?
Yes.
Mr. Witt? Yes. Mr. Verkowski?
Yes. I'd be looking for a motion to proceed as discussed in closed session.
Support.
Got a motion by Mr. Badkins with support by Mr. Brado. Discussion? Hearing none and seeing no public comment, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
All right, is there support?
Support.
All right, discussion? Hearing none and seeing no public comment, all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries. Meeting adjourned. Thank you, board members.